the planet, they say, the evolutionists, being roughly 4.5 billion years. Okay, so 2.5 billion. Okay, so carbon-14 is correct. I was going to go to helium-2, which I'll get back to in a second, but carbon-14 they found in diamonds. Now, if it's 2.5 billion years old, because of the half-life being only 5,700 years, it shouldn't be detectable, certainly not up to 100,000 or beyond 100,000 years. You couldn't detect it. So it's detected, it's there, which indicates that the Earth is younger, or those rocks are younger, the diamonds are younger than 100,000 years, but yet they're saying they're 2.5 billion years old. And so they are found in coal, and coal they claim to be millions of years old in many cases, and they find carbon-14 there as well, which you should not, again, if it's millions of years, you can't detect it after 100,000 at most, if you can go that far. No way. And then the helium, as I was going to bring up, helium is a very slippery type gas, and it'll get through the molecules of any rock pretty rapidly. In fact, it'll get through the molecules of all rock within 10,000 years. So there should be no helium in any rocks in the Earth if the Earth is older than 10,000 years. But yet there's lots of helium still in rocks. But they don't, I didn't know that when I went to school. They don't teach that today. They won't teach that today because it brings into question the accuracy of their clocks. And we go on with clocks, like we were talking with that guy who called in with the last program. And you had mentioned a couple of things like the moon receding away from the Earth, the sun diminishing, the magnetic core of the Earth diminishing. All these things point to a young Earth, and we can go on and on. Those are all different clocks. So, and even with radiometric dating in terms of uranium to lead, which is kind of the most widely known one, there are these radio halos that are created when the half-life situation occurs, and they shouldn't be seen the way they're seen unless it was happening very much more rapidly in another point in time, meaning that the rates have changed over time. And this rate study, R-A-T-E, that you can check out on the internet under ICR, Institute for Creation Research, but it's just I as in Institute, C as in Creation, R as in Research.org, ICR.org, put in rate, go to their website, and you'll see the study that they did. Now these guys have PhDs from top universities in the U.S. in their fields of geology and physics, etc. And they're the ones who discovered about the helium and that there's carbon-14 in diamonds. No one was going to check to look to see if there's carbon-14 in diamonds because they knew it wouldn't be there. Why look? I mean, you're not going to find it. You can't find it after 100,000 years at the very most, if that. So how are you going to find it in diamonds? So no one looked. These guys did. They found it.
And the reason they looked is because of their belief that the Bible is true and it is a young age, Earth.
Right. That's right.
And so because of that belief, they decided, well, let's look for it.
Right.
And guess what they found? And now what does it back up? Which view does it back up? Again, as we keep looking at the evidence, Mike, that the inference to a young age created Earth, especially the complexity of our makeup and the makeup of animals, how can you have another view?
Well, we've been looking at it for so long, but for someone who is just starting out to think this way, it's going to take a bit of time to research this. But ICR.org is a great website. There's thousands of scientists that can contribute, many of whom used to be evolutionary scientists and have changed their mind. And they got tons of information. One thing that I'd like to bring up in relation to that is, starlight and time, that, they say, well, obviously the stars are way out there, and it takes millions of years for starlight to get here from stars that are way out there. Therefore, it takes that long. Therefore, the Earth must be that old. What they don't realize is that space is curved, not linear. And if you have curved space, it's kind of like concave magnifying glasses. Light can travel much, much faster, and it would have been here at the very beginning. And there's a guy named Russell Humphreys, an astrophysicist, who proved that his view is correct by guesstimating the magnetic pull of Uranus and I think it was Neptune, when I think it was one of the Magellan spacecrafts were going to fly by and measure it. They didn't know how strong the magnetic pull would be in those planets. But when they had the equipment flying by in one of the probes that we sent out there, they said, we're going to be able to measure it. Now all the evolutionary scientists said, this is what we think it's going to be. And they were like multitudes off compared to where he was with his estimate. And he was absolutely right, based on a young Earth model. And that's supposedly the best way to determine, when you can't see it happening, that if you can estimate based on things you don't know where things should be based upon that model, that's evidence for that model being true. His model of young Earth was shown to be true based on the magnetic core of those planets. The evolutionary astrophysicists were all astrophysicists. Boy, that was a tough one. They were all wrong. So these are the kind of things that don't get out there. You don't see them on the air because there's an agenda out there, just like there are political agendas. We're humans first before we become scientists. Those are the people who, I'm not a scientist, Jay's not a scientist, but whatever you become, a bus driver, you're a human before you're a bus driver. You're a human before you're a doctor. You're a human before you're a physicist or a geologist. And there's something about the concept of there being a God who requires certain things of us that we don't like in general as humans. And the Bible explains why that is so. And everything fits together like a glove in the Bible, doesn't it, Jay, when you study it?
All you have to do is really set aside what you've been told all your life. Just set it aside. I'm not telling you to discard it. I'm just saying set yourself to a point of, could I have been misled? And if you can do that, it's amazing what you're going to open yourself up to in seeking out. And when you find it, the discovery, Mike, is just absolutely life-changing. And the more you discover, interesting enough, the more peace that comes back inside of you as those lies are destroyed and the truth starts replacing those lies inside you. And your life just does a complete 180.
Right, and that uncertainty is done away with. You know, it lingers in us. Like, is there a reason why we're here? I mean, do you just die and you go into nothingness forever? How can we know? Can we really know for sure?
And the more those lies are displaced with the truth, it's the same with this Creator who came and took upon our sin of death and destruction and lies, and replaced it with Him and His truth. And it's the exact same analogy, Mike, in coming to that reason why we are here. You know, the purpose that we have here.
And you don't have to get into science. I didn't discover this until a couple of years after I became a believer in Jesus. I was convinced by reading Jesus' words and saying, wow, no human being ever spoke like that. And I didn't know that was the same conclusion that Einstein came to, and Napoleon and many others came to in reading.
At that time, no.
No, when I read his words, no, I didn't know that. I was just seeking to understand myself and truth, and I've given my testimony before, and a brief part of my testimony is on our website in one of the articles that are there. But so what God recommends, what we recommend because He recommends it, is read the New Testament and ask God to show you, is this from God? And that's the fastest, quickest, best way, because you're hearing God's voice as given through prophets, proven that it's supernatural by the prophecies never being proven wrong ever, those that are given in the Bible. We've talked a lot about prophecy on many of our other programs. And that, you know, God says He's going to prove His existence by telling the future and never be wrong. And He's done it. And, you know, I didn't know any of this stuff before, but as you start to read just Jesus' words, and without even looking at the prophecy at first, His words are just so unique. A human being doesn't speak like that normally. It's like other people have said. Either, you know, C.S. Lewis said it and many others have said it. Either he was a madman or a liar, or he is who he claimed to be.